My name is Cassie Blaney. I'm solicitor from Sweet Stevens, Katz & Williams. I'm here in place of John Audie tonight, so you may see his name on a few things, and you can pretend I'm him for the next hour or so. Welcome to Act 34 hearing. We're here, and I'll give you the purpose. So Pennsylvania School Code tells us that when you are building new construction for a school or doing substantial renovation addition to a school, it's required to have a public hearing so that public has the opportunity, board has the opportunity to understand what the district is trying to do, why, and what the costs are. So, purpose for this particular Act 34 hearing is to present the proposed new construction addition to the Abington Heights Middle School. If it's important to note, you'll go through, you'll see costs. If the maximum building construction cost that was adopted by the board on February 5th is exceeded by 8%, there will be a second public hearing. So just something to keep in mind if what is presented to you as the cost is significantly higher. When bids come in, we'll do this all over again. So, general purposes. We're going to establish the need for the project by reviewing events leading to the board's decision to proceed with the building program. We'll review various options considered by the board prior to their decision to proceed with the project. You'll get a description of the construction of the new addition for the Abington Heights Middle School and the educational program that it serves and why, the basis for the proposal. You'll see the estimated construction cost, the total project cost, the financial needs, and an estimate of the local tax impact of the project. We want to give citizens and residents an opportunity to comment and to pose questions. So please note that this is an opportunity for the administration and the professionals who are accountable to your school board to describe and discuss the proposed project. This is not a debate. There is a stenographer present here to my right, your left, to receive and record comments and observations. So there is an official record of the hearing so that the board can consider and study constructive comments or questions, and you don't have to furiously take notes because we'll have those available for you in a short period of time. All right. Any and all interested people may attend and provide comment. We do ask that you sign in on a sheet above. When it comes time for public comment, I will take that sheet and we'll call one by one to keep keep orderly comments, and two, so that the stenographer has a list of names and we can feed those into the transcript for later. Okay. All right, on to procedures for public comment. I promise that I'm not going to talk this much after the first couple minutes. This is definitely not my show. So we welcome you to the meeting, and we welcome comments from all residents and employees who wish to express their opinion. There are some specific rules for public comment, and so I want to make sure we're all on the same page. So first, there's a time for verbal presentation, public comment later in the meeting. Those comments are limited to 5 minutes. I'll have a timer, and I've been provided with this lovely bell in case anybody gets past that time. We'll also take written testimony, and we have 30 days after the hearing. So if you leave here tonight and you think of something else, you have until 4 p.m. on March 31st to supply a written statement to the board and the district if you have something else that you think is valuable to be heard. Comments from the floor will be allowed after the agenda. When we get to the agenda place, no person's allowed to speak a second time until all parties testifying the first time have been heard. When you come to the floor, individuals should identify themselves by name, their address, whether they're a resident or employee, and present their comments or questions. If objections are raised, it would be beneficial if the individual proposed what should be done to solve the problem being addressed and how the board might accomplish the suggested change. Again, if you've got any questions after, please let me know, and you have until March 31st, 4 o'clock on March 31st to provide written comment. And now I get to turn over the floor to Dr. Schaefer.
Thank you very much, Cassie. My portion of this program will briefly speak to the need for the project. Tonight we're talking about Abington Heights Middle School, which was built in 1975 with no significant renovations over the last 50 years. Some of the educational inadequacies that need to be remedied include the original building design was for an open pod classrooms without walls in the mid-70s. Classroom pods are now subdivided, resulting in inadequate environments for our students and teachers. Teaching methods are often limited, due to room size and the small number of classrooms. Music, art, and STEM-related classrooms are outdated and are in need for reconfiguring. The total building area is undersized for the current student enrollment of 1,106. Some of the operational inadequacies that I'd like to mention that need remedied is the half-circle shaped classroom wing is not on the same floor as the rest of the school building. Toilet facilities are undersized and do not meet accessibility requirements. Current vehicular site circulation does not meet the needs of the school. As a result of this, and a comprehensive facility study completed by KCBA in approximately 2 years of study by the board of school directors. We looked at approximately 4 options. The first one was completely rebuild the middle school serving grades 5 through 8. The second option that the board considered was to build an addition alongside the existing middle school to serve grades 5 and 6 and completely renovate the existing spaces. Option 3, which is the option before us, is to build an addition along the existing middle school to serve grades 7 and 8 and renovate only music, art, and the STEM portions of the existing school. And then finally, the fourth option was to build a large addition adjacent to the existing music, art, and STEM spaces to serve grades 5 through 8 and demolish the existing half circle. As I mentioned just previously, option 3 was selected by the district as the most cost-effective solution. At this point, I would turn it over to Mike Kelly, the Principal of Project Development at KCBA Architects.
Thank you, Dr. Schaefer. Good evening. My name is Michael Kelly. I'm an architect with KCBA Architects. I'm an architect with KCBA Architects.
Underneath.
Just the microphone.
There's a button on the bottom.
Check.
I am not an audiovisual technician. Thank you. Good evening, everyone. My name is Michael Kelly. I'm an architect with KCBA Architects, and I'll be describing the project for everyone tonight. We're very excited about the possibilities and the successful solution that's ahead of the board and the public tonight. As Dr. Schaefer had mentioned, and as you can see on the board here, the site of the existing middle school is also shared by the Newton Ramsden Elementary School. And because of that, we wanted to make sure that we were improving site access for buses and cars onto the site, since there are 2 schools on the same site, and we're doing that by providing a new parking area and improved bus loop around the existing property. The new addition that's shown in gray on the image in front of you shows a 2-story academic addition that'll include 2 stories of classrooms and science labs, some STEM spaces as well, and the new front door of the school. The new main entry will provide a safe and secure and identifiable main entrance to the entire school complex, directly off the new parking area to the right of the new addition. A new gymnasium will also be added to the facility. This gymnasium is a larger size than the existing gymnasium that's at the middle school and will more adequately serve the number of students at the school. Moving into floor plans, the lower pod area of the existing half-circle middle school, as Dr. Schaefer had described, stays generally the same that it is now. However, currently that houses on both floors all grades from 5 to 8. In this plan, 7th and 8th grade will move into the new addition, and 5th and 6th grade will occupy only the half circle on 2 floors. So this is an example of the half circle on the lower floor. And as you can see, when we look at the larger first floor plan, this is the level where students and visitors will be entering at the main level. You can see in red all of the new spaces that are being added as part of this project, and all of the existing spaces in blue that are highlighted there that are in most cases remaining intact. The long bar on the bottom of the plan there in blue with some STEM and music and art spaces are being renovated and reconfigured in a minor way to better serve the core classroom or the core educational curriculum in the middle school. There is a second floor, as we mentioned, to the new addition. That is almost a mirror image of the first floor brought up to the second floor with additional classrooms, science labs, meeting areas, and at the front of the school above where admin is on the first floor will be several STEM labs for science, technology, engineering, and math curriculum. Here we're showing an image of the new facade. So this will be the new front door, the new main entrance to the entire school. You can see right in the middle there the new front door and the new secure entrance into the school. To the right is the two-story classroom addition, and on the far right, the new gymnasium space. As you come up from below on the site, as you're driving up, you can see the existing white brick of the existing half-circle building that is to remain as part of this project, and the new addition to the right. Upon entering the school, we have some signage and a nice space to welcome everyone. To the left is the administration area. So a student would come down or enter this space here, make a right to the 7th and 8th grade wing, or head straight down the hallway into the existing middle school space and the existing attributes that are to remain there. A typical classroom is rectilinear in this design. Every room will have natural light, served by exterior windows, as well as casework and the district standard for educational technology in each room. We do have areas outside of classrooms as well for education to kind of break out of the room, so that we wanted to make sure that there was ample areas for learning to happen outside of just the classroom itself. As I mentioned, on the second floor are two STEM studios. We're showing this here as one large. There's a partition in the middle that could be closed, but when that's open, this provides, again, the entire school with a large STEM space on the second floor. Again, as we mentioned, there is a gymnasium addition as part of the project. This is a view of the gym lobby. It's one way enter direct into this space. For after-school programs, the school proper could be shut down, and public access could be only to this portion of the building, adding, again, additional security measures to the school. Where the new building meets the old building, there's some outdoor space, and we're excited to show some courtyard spaces that are now developed by essentially the marriage of the two buildings coming together to enclose a space and allow some outdoor activities secured on all four sides by existing buildings. So into the direct costs of the project, one of the things that Act 34 is looking at is regulating the cost of the new construction of the building. So we'll look at kind of total project first. So if we look at the structural costs, including the site for the entire construction portion of the building, that is on our PlanCon forms, PlanCon D. That is a cost of $39.5 million. Act 34 is also looking at architect's fees, which includes engineers and designers and other consultants. It's looking at furniture. It's looking at construction management fees, other things like printing, surveying, permits, legal fees, and all of those things that are involved in a larger project. Contingencies, so that we're budgeting for things that may occur even during construction, as well as financial costs. So at the Abington Heights School Board meeting on February 5th, a total project amount was adopted of $48,489,992. As I mentioned, what Act 34 is regulating is the maximum cost of the building, just that addition portion. So if we look at the structure cost there, the design fees and furniture, that equated to $34,408,794. However, when we take out site costs and fees associated to that, because again, those are the things that are not regulated by the Act 34 maximum building construction cost. The Abington Heights School Board adopted a maximum building cost of $28,755,675 at its February 5th, 2025 meeting.
Okay, great, thank you.
Hit the button on the.
Testing, there we go. So my name is Zach Williard from PFM Financial Advisors. As the district's financial advisor, it is our job to consider the financing alternatives to fund a project like this. Those would be a cash or a short-term loan, a general obligation bond issue, a local authority issue, or financing through the State Public School Building Authority. With a project of this size, cash or short-term loan is not feasible, so therefore we ran the analysis on alternatives 2, 3, and 4, which you can see on this page. Based on the analysis, the general obligation bond issue is the most cost-effective method of financing this project. The school district is considering other ways to reduce the debt service to fund the project, the first of which is probably not going to be needed, which is bond insurance due to the district's high AA credit rating. The second one, which we will utilize, is a wraparound debt service structure to take advantage of the district's existing debt service drop-off to help minimize the budgetary impact of the project. I also want to note that the district is not planning to assume any state reimbursement through the PlanCon process for this project. So if you flip to this page, page 34, here we see the total millage impact estimated for this project. So in table 1 in the handout that you have, we expect 0.74 mil for the series of 24 borrowing, which already happened. Table 2, we anticipate a $15 million borrowing with the impact of about 3.18 mils. In table 3, you can see another $15 million borrowing with an impact estimated at 2.27 mils. And then the final borrowing in table 4, the series of 2027 for an $11.5 million borrowing with an impact of 3.49 mils. So the total impact of the borrowings is expected to be 9.68 mils, and this assumes that the value of a collected mill is approximately $237,000, $237.70. If we flip to the next page, we're going to go over the indirect costs of the project. So it's reasonable to assume that there will be indirect costs of the project estimated to be about $275,000, as you can see on this page. So assuming the collected mill provides $237,000, the indirect costs are expected to have an average cost of 1.16 mils. So that combined with the borrowing of 9.68 mils gives you a total impact of the project of 10.84 mils. And with that, I'll turn it back over to the solicitor.
All right. So we're ready for public comment. Do we have anyone looking to make public comment? Do we have to sign in? Did anybody sign in?
No, I don't think so.
I don't think so. All right. So if we have public comment, let me remind you what we're looking for. Name, address, whether you are resident or employee, and a 5-minute timer.
Right in front of you, there's a sign-in sheet right there.
If you'll just sign in so we have that for after, we can check names to the transcripts.
And when you say your name, if you could spell it for the stenographer, that would be fantastic.
Sure.
Thank you.
My name is Diane Schumacher. It's SCHUMACHER. I live at 920 Oakwood Drive in South Ave. And I'm actually kind of an employee and a resident. I'm a substitute teacher. And I've had 4 kids go through the school. So I just had a couple, I taught long-term sub in the middle school, and just a couple things I was trying to get clear in my own head. If you're going to do this addition for the 7th and 8th and still have all those other 5th and 6th grade classes, I mean, there's 5 classrooms in a team. Are they going to be consolidated so there's less classes in that space? Like you have on the upper level, say 8 white, there's 5 classrooms. Now, if we're saying we're just gonna have fifth and sixth, in order to make those kids not as crowded, are there gonna be fewer classes than 5 in each one of those spaces?
What I'll do to make sure that you get all your time and ask all your questions, what I'm going to do is we're writing down all the questions. I'm
Okay.
going to answer them, put them on an FAQ. And if there's some that are relatively easy for me to answer without, tagging a bunch of resources and videos that we have, I'll just go ahead and answer those. So
Okay.
I'll give you, I don't want to waste your
Okay,
time.
so that's my first one, it's
Okay.
just, I've been in the middle school a ton of times, and just how that's gonna change. My other thing that you didn't really talk about at all is, what about the cafeteria? Is that gonna be moved, is that gonna be different, new, because right now it's ridiculously small and difficult? And my last little thing is, the current art, home ec, those music rooms on that, are they gonna be classrooms, is that gonna be part of the new, I'm just kinda trying to wrap my head around what it really is gonna look at. And if I could make one more little suggestion for you. When you show those pictures, for me, it would be really helpful if you had a little pointer or something. We're up there and okay, so this is this and this is this, because I'm trying to, look at your circles and half circles. And like I said, I know the middle school really well, but kind of rep. So that's all I have, just trying to get it clear in my own head.
Thank you.
All right. I'm going to go ahead and take a crack at some of these, because although these are fantastic questions, so I'm going to also answer them on an FAQ, because I do get the question about the 5th and 6th grade area. So that's going to be much more room for our kids. We're going to eliminate, since you're familiar with the building, that open classroom in the middle, where there's a classroom and they can hear students to the left and to the right and coming in. We're also providing brand new furniture for all those students, and then we'll do some other things there. But essentially, all those students will have twice as much space.
So that open area, will that be incorporated into some of the other classes? Or what will that?
We're leaving that up to the teachers and the principal to designate that space, what works best for them and their teams, but it won't be a classroom that's easily interrupted. It's an,
That you're still then having, you're going in that hall into the team, and on either side, there's a classroom, and then down, yes, there's that open space and a classroom on either side again. Are those classrooms on the sides gonna remain the same, so they're not gonna, nothing's gonna be done, they're gonna be the same size?
correct.
Okay, so, because those aren't very big either.
Right. We're going to take a look to see how we can reconfigure that for those best purposes, because we will be adding some spaces, particularly with special education. So we're going to be able to move some things around. Relative to the cafeteria, that is not on the list. However, we have saved approximately, and Jim, make sure I'm not speaking out of term here, close to $1 million in funds that are allocated for the cafeteria. So we'll be looking at upgrading the cafeteria and making renovations that way, but it would be from a different funding source.
But it'll be in the same place?
Correct. And then the art and the art rooms. Right. So that was part of the area that's going to be renovated, and the art rooms will actually be the first ones online in 2026 or so. But that area of the existing building for renovation, so those are going to be completely redone. So since you're familiar with it, there's some really goofy rooms, right? And so we'll eliminate that, and they'll be really nice. But what we'll do is, I'm going to put up, to your last point, we're going to be putting up a video, and it'd be kind of like a 3D video, so you'll be able to actually go into that classroom and take a look around. So you'll be able to compare and contrast what you're seeing.
I don't suppose we're gonna bring home ec back, huh?
I couldn't answer that right now. We'll tell you what, we'll consider that.
I thought that for a year and a half, that's a huge loss, but, okay.
Do we have any other public comment?
Robin Domenico, 514 Clark Street, Clark's Green. I saw on the picture that to the right of the new parking space, it looks like tennis courts? Or is that just for visual effect?
Fields.
Oh, they're fields. Are they new fields?
It's lawn area that'll be flat. So it's not a turf field.
So it's going to be graded so it's not a downhill?
Yes.
Okay, so there's no actually designated fields, that's just going to be flattened out. Okay, second of all, my question is, currently there's a gym and an auxiliary gym. So what happens to those spaces? Are they being renovated? And what's the size difference between the old gym and the new gym? My question is, why do we need two gyms and an auxiliary gym? So, those are my questions, and that's it. Oh, third question, since I have 5 minutes. What's happening to the auditorium? I just spent 2 hours in it last night, and I'm just wondering, is that going to be renovated as well? Don't all jump in and answer the question.
Well, no, I'm going to let you answer your questions. and
Go
then
ahead,
I'll-
I'm done,
No.
I'm done.
All right. And then we'll answer in the FAQ and the ones that I can answer now. So you have 4 questions, is that correct?
Whatever it was. 3, 4.
Right.
Size of the gyms.
Right.
Why do we need 3? Are there fields to the right? And what's happening to the auditorium?
So I wasn't looking over my shoulder, but there are 2 soccer fields that are, I believe, in that picture. Those are grass fields. And the question as far as why we would have those is, when you take a look at that blueprint of the whole school, or I should say the footprint, you can see we're moving it more towards what I would call the ransom side. And for safety purposes, we do not want to keep our kids on the opposite side, right? So we want to keep our kids as close to the school as possible. When I think about this hearing, I want to hit on 3 things: kids, safety, and kids again. That's why you're starting to see some things in more updated plans where we have enclosed areas that are open spaces for students. We are getting away from some open spaces that are unprotected. So if you're walking around some of our schools, you'll notice that the board has approved fencing in some of those areas. We also do that to keep deer and other wild animals from getting in, and that does happen more frequently than you would think. So we do have that. The gym is a great question. So if you've been in the auxiliary gym, it isn't a great auxiliary gym. And the main gym is also very small and cramped. The large gym, and when I say large, it's in contrast to what's there, is going to provide a lot more space for all of our students. It will also add for more seamless scheduling, because right now, 95% of the kids are in the half circle. When we build the other wing, you could run almost 2 different schedules, and you would not have to commingle the kids as much as possible. So you could simultaneously have a 5th and 6th grade having a PE and a 7th and 8th. But to your point, one of the next phases is, how might we renovate that space? Because they could be classrooms or offices, things like that. So it is rectangular, which works well, versus the circle, which I've learned from the architects in just basic mathematics, does not work well for renovating. So that's a great question, and we've been kicking that around, and that's kind of like the next phase of that. The size difference between the gyms, I'd defer to Mike, but I think we'd be looking at about a 10,000 square foot new gym, in contrast to, are we like 4,000 or 5,000? I'm guesstimating here.
It is, without knowing the exact number, which we could certainly get for your
FAQ.
It is larger than obviously the existing gym that's there. That's very small, undersized for sports and really spectators as well.
Right.
So
And-
the new gym will provide much larger space, much more opportunity, and certainly have seating available where really the existing gym does not.
And there's also, as we think about the gym and really the whole middle school, that we have all sorts of ADA accessibility issues, and we've been working through that. But when the building was built in '75, IDEA was probably very new. But IDEA didn't have teeth until the 1990s. We didn't even recognize autism and provide transition services and vocational services and so on and so forth until 1990 and perhaps 97 and 2004, which have driven our need for, you know, a lot of soul searching and building in some of our facilities. So the auditorium is not being renovated. That's kind of next on that list as we talk about it. There's always this demarcation line where we have to stop. However, I'm given the however, we
Took the walls out.
yeah, we do have a plan to take the walls out. So if you spent 2 hours, I don't know if you've seen the walls, they do not shut very well. There's also flooring that I would categorize as janky. And so that's the type of things that, that we're going to work on. We've already done some things as far as the lighting and the sound in the curtains. But certainly the auditorium's on that list. And I would be remiss, even though you didn't answer this question, it wasn't asked, but I know that this question was asked in another public meeting, and it came to me through double hearsay. So I reserve the right to walk it back, but it was a kind of a great question about, you know, what are some of the things that have changed from the 1970s to now in some of our classrooms. And I go back to IDEA, and we really think about what does an excellent education look like for all of our students. Back then, you know, all of the students were it's just in the classrooms. I think we had maybe, and it wasn't probably called this, a special education classroom in the library. And I received this information from a previous principal, so I consider it to be reliable. Now, when we take a look in that middle school, we have 13 rooms that are designated as special education classrooms where we provide all sorts of intervention services that we should, and they're high quality, and we have some mandates that we should follow. And when we build this new addition, we're going to be adding 2 autistic classrooms as well to make sure that we are providing the highest quality education for all of our students. And that certainly does inhibit our ability to provide a nice learning environment for everybody if we maintained our current structure. So that's another reason why we are taking a look at expanding. So I guess come on in, sir.
I was watching him walk up, but I didn't say anything.
No, I didn't see.
Back to my time.
Good evening. My name is Tim Habib. I live in the 1714 Da Vinci Lane in Newton. So do I write that down here?
Yes, please. You can do it when you're done, though, that's fine.
And I am old enough that I missed the cutoff. I never went to the middle school, so. And I have 2 questions. Give me 1 second. So my first question, and thank you for the due diligence that you've been doing on this project. It's a big project. The population in the district has been declining since 2000. When you look at what's going on nationally, at the state level, and even locally to colleges and universities, they believe that that dynamic is so severe that they're closing campuses. How much was that factored into this decision, and how was it factored into this decision? So that's my first question. My second question is that when you look at the national landscape and education, I think it's clear that changes are coming, right? Funding is probably going to be cut. Decisions are being made now that are going to impact us for the next 2, 4, 10 years. How has that dynamic factored into the scope and timing of this project? And would it be a wise thing, would it be warranted to delay this a little bit till you see how the dust settles with funding, you know, coming from above? All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I think I put enough ink on this paper that it won't stay up here anymore.
That's all right, thank you.
All right, it's going down here.
Right.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you. Great questions. So the first one, when you talk about enrollment, it plays a huge factor. And we take a look at our longitudinal enrollment. We've really looked at this over 20-plus years. And I actually look at birth rate data. So we're looking at the birth rate data right now to project where we are in kindergarten. Our architects look at the same thing. And we are at a very good place enrollment-wise as compared to our colleagues. In the last couple of years, I've made public presentations where in our intermediate unit, and let's just call it Lackawanna County, school districts have been seeing declines greater than 5, in the range of 7 to 9%, whereas we've held steady to gone up 2%. We do know that since COVID, that everybody has seen increases in charter school enrollment. And whatever you may think there, I can tell you that we have a disproportionate amount of students in our favor that attend as compared to others. So we have approximately 80 students there. So the question about enrollment and thinking about enrollment as we look to renovate and improve our facilities is absolutely huge. And in this hypothetical that I'm going to give you is, if we were seeing sharp declines in trends and patterns, then the question is, are you shutting schools? Are you consolidating? And fortunately, that was not the position that we're in. So we do look at enrollment seriously. We look at development. We work with our local politicians and municipalities to make sure we're doing everything that we can to make the Abingtons the place to be. We do believe that we are the most excellent educational institution in the state, and we will continue to strive for that. And if we do that, then we believe that people will want to live in our community. The next question, another great one about the national educational landscape. If we looked at every $10 in revenue that Abington Heights received, approximately $7 comes from local sources, local businesses, so on and so forth. A little under $3 comes from state sources. And after this year, after we write our ESSER money off of our accounting, we'll have probably 0.7 of a dollar, 70 cents, coming from federal sources. But I'm not going to say that federal sources aren't important, because on a $57 million budget, I'll take that 1%. And we'll do everything that we can to advocate for it. The last question that you ask, another great one is, oftentimes I get questioned about, hey, why don't we pause? Well, we've been deferring maintenance for almost 50 years here. However, one of the biggest challenges that every community has in supporting education is construction costs never go down. In fact, since 2020, construction costs have gone up 90%. In 2020, we could have built at 0% financing for $243 a square foot new build. Now we face municipal bonds at 4%, which is not outrageous at all. It's probably the norm when we look longitudinally over 20 some odd years. But the cost per square foot is now $410, and it's going up. Never will it be cheaper than today to build, and that then puts us in a really difficult position, because here we are right now talking about renovating and adding on to a middle school that was built in 1975. And if I'm going to be totally transparent, we probably should have done this before, because we did a whole bunch of work in the mid-90s. And there's a lot of people that perhaps I see out there that, hey, yeah, I remember the 90s. And you know what? They're coming up, on their 30-year high school class reunion. So now we're looking at 4 to 5 school buildings where the boilers are going down. We're having trouble with the roofs. We got electrical issues. So waiting is not a prudent decision to make. We're trying to make the most cost-effective solution and put the district in a great place for future students, current students, and as well as future boards. So I appreciate the questions. They've been fantastic. I'll reiterate and put this all down in a FAQ, and I'm just really so happy that we have a stenographer, because it just made my job a little easier that way. All right.
I just have a couple of questions for you.
You
On the blabbermouth.
just missed it. You're like 3 feet away.
Yeah, that's right. My name is Jim Schumacher,
Okay.
all right, same as Diane, 920 Oakwood Drive, South Abington. I had four kids educated through Abington Heights. Fantastic school system, I'll say that right up front. I have 3 educators and 1 who works for the Air Force, and all college graduates, all right? But here's my question. With the middle school, you have temporary walls in those, in the 5th and 6th grade where you're proposing putting them in. Are you going to replace those temporary walls, because it still can get loud? So I was wondering if that was on your list to take care of for that. And my other thing is, you were talking about the kids. I couldn't agree with you more. Are you looking at a better security system? Because I see that you're moving things around to keep them, safer. So what are you doing? And I know that you probably have the most up-to-date stuff to keep the kids safe, but is there, in the future, something you're going to do, what you're doing to the new edition? Are you going to be doing the same thing to the old edition to keep everything all in sync and in line? And my final question is the busing. Are you going to have different buses for 7th and 8th grade, or are you still going to stick with the same routine, which is fine, but I was just curious on how you were going to do that, because you're going to have probably 2 different areas you have to drop these kids off. Those are my questions.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So the question about the temporary walls, at this point, we do not have a plan to immediately replace them. This is much like the auditorium. When we think about this, we know that is an issue, and we know that we need to take care of it. We just don't have the ability to do that now, although there are things that we can do, i.e. we're moving 50% of the students out of that area that will make it quieter. And the board has said publicly that there's nothing more that we would rather do than build the second piece to this, had it not been for all the increasing costs, which I just mentioned. And thank you for mentioning the security. 3 years ago, we had no cameras in our 6 school buildings. We have approximately 660,000 square feet of school buildings. So if you can imagine, it's like having a subdivision of 300 homes, right? And can you imagine, you have no security there. Right now, we have over 115 cameras, which we have some tremendous capabilities that we don't really go into much publicly. We also, and that was from grants. So this is not, we got a grant, we took care of that. We also have an SRO, a South Abington Township Police Officer, in our middle school building. That was taken care of off a grant as well. We've also invested in door barricades and things like that. But aside from all that, one of the things that you'll see in these, the new images, and if you're familiar with the middle school, if you walk down that middle school, the hall, I can put my hands on either side of the wall. I wish I could give everybody a tour when classes are changing and kids are walking through. It's craziness. And all the kids are just well-behaved, fantastic, but it's not humanly possible to walk through there without bumping shoulders and look, when you're COVID, and sharing air and all of that. So when we think about new buildings, Mike showed in some of these pictures, the hallways are very wide. We've made the hallways in the new building so wide that it's easy to get through. The kids have lockers on both sides, not the janky things that they put stuff in now. And there's also space to have classrooms there and classrooms outside that are protected, that nobody can get in. So those are some of the safety things. The busing, I wake up every morning, I wish I could fix the busing. And one of them is that everybody kind of changed their mind about buses after COVID. And this is just something that we battle every single day. It doesn't matter what school you go to. The amount of parents that drop off their students in the morning is alarming, right? And I don't say that as a knock on anybody. I probably would have done it too if my kids were still young. But what we have are neighborhood schools. Think about it. We've been educating our kids for 193 years in the Abingtons. We were once 6 school districts. And in 1967, we consolidated to 1. And we were very much a neighborhood community, like many communities in the United States. And Clark Summit Elementary, it's right there in the community. Like, kids walk there. So it's not meant for everybody to drive their kids. So we will hope that we can change some of the busing. I mean, if I could find bus drivers, that would be helpful. But that's one of the things we'll look at, because when we build a separate building, we're able to also have a separate bell schedule. So that's one of my hopes. I think we had one other. Yep, there.
I apologize for my appearance. What do I need to fill out? So my name is Mark Sanchez. I live on 502 Gravel Pond Road in South Abington Township. I am a resident here. I am a business owner in the area. I provide to the community with jobs or a service that we do. And I come here as a concerned taxpayer. I pay close to $7,000 a year in school taxes. And, with the county reassessment, I come as a minority. I don't have any children. I do not share a lot of the same goals that people have here. But I come seeing the potential and the beauty that Clark Summit and South Abington has in this community. My first question leads to construction. As a flooring contractor in this area, and we've been in this area for 15 years, there are some things that have scared me as of lately. Mainly, we work with a lot of, we're CoStar approved, and we are minority business entities in the state of Pennsylvania. So we do have access to certain information that others do not have access to. For instance, and it's alarming, a school district in Scranton asked us to submit a bid. And this is a storytelling event. And we were like, cool, no issues. We know how much, they want us to submit a blanket bill. It's around 100 square feet. What do you charge for that? We're fair. 14, 15, $16 a square foot, honest people. Our buddy called us saying, hey, we need some more numbers. You need to outbid us so we could win the bid. Can you send us your numbers? The number was $61 per square foot for 100 square feet. That is $6,100 for a job that costs this town, our taxpayers, me, I pay for that, you pay for that, all of you wonderful people here. We're shouldering the burden for people that, are a little hungry in the market. And there's not much oversight. in that pricing process. So, but it's 100 square feet, so what? The issue is that same bid followed for 5,000 square feet at the same $61 a square foot. That means that same, this person, they're gonna, and they're the only bidder. So us and them are the only bidders. That means us taxpayers had to shoulder the burden for a $290,000 cafeteria, was 5,000 square feet. So it's alarming, it's scary, because I'm always been a very straight up person. So where is the question is, how are we, I'm all for repairing, but being extremely resourceful for what we have. So how are we gonna have oversight into that and make sure that we're getting the best bang for the buck? Because we're all shouldering this, the community's probably not over 40 or $50,000 people in this square area. That's almost including Clark's Green, Clark Summit, and we're boiling down to Dunmore, in that area. And the other thing I'm asking for is, I know homestead and farmstead exemptions are handed out by the city, by the school district. How does that change with this proposed budget? I'm pretty sure it's you're talking 1-2% is basically what you're giving. How does that change? Are those numbers going to be affected? Are those going to be dropped moving forward? And the last thing is, if you guys could show a payoff matrix where, what are the true benefits for, I don't have any children, so it's really tough for me to say, I'm happy to pay this bill, but I'm happy to shoulder the burden, because I understand everybody here has a responsibility, and I want to speak for those that may not have been able to come. So if there's some sort of payoff matrix that can show the benefits for someone moving into the area, but believes in what Clark Summit and South Abington stands for, and yeah, that's it.
No problem, thank you. I've got 4 questions. I think somebody's behind you.
Yeah.
I probably won't hit them in order, and some of them I may be making some inferences. And so forgive me if I categorize this, but waste, fraud, and abuse is just 3 terms that keep on circling my head in the last week or so. But I want to hit on it because you did make a couple good points when you were giving your example. Now, Pennsylvania is a prevailing wage state. Okay. We believe in our union workers. We're going to pay that. There are states that operate differently, but we have state procurement guidelines that we must follow. So we have a bidding process, a pre-bidding process that will start. But what we've done to protect ourselves is not only do we have highly qualified architects that went through a rigorous RFP process, but we've also hired a construction management firm, because this is a huge project, that also went through a competitive RFP process. And I meet with them bi-weekly. We've probably spent close to 100 hours in meetings, and we all have various software packages where we see the prevailing wage, market rates. So before we even stepped into this, and we look at these estimates, I've got 2 independent groups, architects and construction management firm, that came back and said, hey, look, we're right on target here. There's a reason that I'm fluent, unfortunately, with price per square foot of air conditioning, new build, renovation, sewage, you name it, right? Because there's a whole lot of data around this that allows us to kind of project some very accurate numbers. But there's always going to be bid risk, and we won't know where we end up until mid-May. But when we think about our job as stewards of the public finances, that's very important that we have a construction management firm, because when our bids come in, we'll do our due diligence and review them to make sure that there is nothing crazy. So when you gave an example of giving a quote of $15, $16 a square foot versus something that's $61, those shenanigans won't happen here. We want to make sure that we get the best prices, and we'll also go out to alternate bid as well. So when we think about cost savings, for instance, we may be looking at and discussing the flooring, the tiles. in the new building. And we know what those cost. And then we'll put out an alternate bid for a cheaper tile, which we know may not last as long, which may require more upkeep, but we'll have that information. We'll be able to make informed decisions and understand the trade-offs that we're making. So we take the procurement process very seriously to make sure that we arrive at the best answer.
And I'll interject one point there as a reminder. School code requires when the bids come back, if the bids are 8% or more higher than what they were initially estimated to be, there will have to be a second hearing. So the district will have to come back and explain to the public whether they're moving forward or why the costs were different and discuss this all over again. So there is some checks and balances there, or some checks and balances.
And while I don't have the numbers in my head, I've spoken about it publicly, and I do want to get it. One of the things I take a look at and speak about is the value of an Abington Heights education. And I look at that from an educator's perspective. And I understand that perhaps I have some blinders on and that other people have other perspectives. But I'm here to share my perspective on that. So I know that we value our education here, and we're looked at as a preeminent educational institution. That's why people want to come here. And as a result, our property values, the value of your home, has increased at a disproportionate level as compared to other areas around here. And this data is published on the monthly. The other that I talk about is, and this is, sir, is relative to, what's that value. There are many people that I speak with on the daily that are graduates of Abington Heights and come back. And I can tell you that when our kids go off to college or trade school, one of the most important metrics that we look at is second year persistence rate. Do your kids persist in college that second year or trade school? And ours is 95%, way above the national average. And that's because we prepare our students and provide them with an excellent education. And when you receive an excellent education and you're a part of an organization in a community like that that values education, you want to come back there and live in that community. And that's something that we never want to diminish, and why we continually invest. And so that's how I look at that value. What value, if you don't have children, what is that value of living in this community? And it's the people and what we have to offer. And then Jim, farmstead exclusion is out of my depth.
Jim Mirabelli, business manager. The homestead farmstead exclusion will remain relatively the same. The two factors involved are the pot of money that the state provides for property tax reductions, so the allocation, divided by the number of approved homesteads and farmsteads. So I wouldn't expect that amount to change very much, regardless of what is done at the middle school.
Hi, good evening. My name is Michael Kizmarchik. I'm a resident of Newton Township, 101 Forest Edge Drive. I have two children that are currently enrolled here in the Abington Heights School District. One is a kindergartner, and the other is a freshman who has just recently spent 4 years in the building we're here to discuss tonight. Dr. Schaefer, the first thing I'd like to ask about, to pair it off of someone else's question, is the walls in the ARC section of the building. I was under the distinct impression that the school district had done effectively, for lack of a better way to describe it, a security assessment of this facility. And one of the significant detriments they noted was the inability to be able to protect those spaces in a lockdown situation. So considering the fact that we're saying we are not intending to address the walls on that space, and my children and her friends jokingly refer to the fact that the walls are so thin in that space they could literally run through them, I'm curious what the long-term plan is in terms of being able to address that, whether it's now or in the future, and what that looks like. The other thing I guess I'm wondering, and I apologize if this were publicly posted, I didn't see this, is I'm curious what goes on with the rest of our students during construction. I know there were some other questions about how are you rearranging folks, where are they going to be? You know, I'm not entirely clear, you know, are the kids actively going to be in the building during construction or not? When it comes to parking and driving into the facility, just a simple observation. Spent 4 years mostly driving one of my children to this school, not so because I wanted to. Yeah, you know, during COVID was that definitely a driver, absolutely. However, after the fact, one of the, I think, the contributing factors as to why you have so many parents who are forced to drive their children to school is because the middle school buses come before the high school buses do. Now that she's in high school, my daughter literally gets up at the time that she used to have to be on a bus. So I'm wondering if there's any consideration as to changing timing. I know there's some challenges with busing in general, but you know, that's one thing I'd like to ask about. Along the same line, unless I'm misunderstanding what we're intending to do here, the core choke points regarding traffic management for this facility are effectively unchanged. While we may have a different parking lots that's there, I'm curious how this changes our traffic management situation. And then more on the financial side. As I understand it, I don't do finance professionally, but we're about to issue a bunch of new bonds, right? So we've clearly identified the fact that with just this facility alone, there are a variety of things we would like to do that we don't currently have funds to do. So by going on with this project and the fact that we have other facilities that needs things, are we going to be in a position to be able to look at that in the next 5 to 10 years is what I'm wondering. On the same financial front, you know, while one of my children happens to be a student athlete at the high school, I'm a little bit perplexed by the decision the school district has made to invest money in building a new athletic facility when we're saying that we don't have enough money to renovate this school. So I'm just curious if you could address a couple of those points, please. It's Kazmarchak. I can spell that for you. It's K-A-C-Z-M-A-R-C-Z-Y-K.
Okay. I'm going to do my very best to answer all of your questions. If I miss something, then I'll make sure that we go back and we hit it when we read the transcript, okay? So the first question about the walls and the lockdown, I'm not aware of a safety assessment that we had that indicated that was a concern, although I can go back and take a look at the Pennsylvania State Police in 2021 did a study and an assessment of the building. So I'll be able to take a look at that. We had recommendations from that we followed. I think I spoke about the walls. We are aware of that, and that's you know, kind of on the list of what, you know, we think about. We know that we're able to remove 50% of the students, and that will make a dramatic impact there. But certainly, you know, if we had all the funds available, we would build a middle school so we wouldn't have to have that situation that you described with those walls and the acoustics piece to that. Regarding where the students are during construction, with this model, one of the most attractive options relative to your question here is that we don't have to move our students. We are building a separate building that during probably one of the last summers will be connected on to the main building. What you will notice, however, is that the entrance will shift. So the rear of the building where the tennis courts are, it will be the new entrance. And we'll be taking that faculty lot back there, and that'll be about 1.5 times the size that it is. We also own, you probably don't see it, but down on the side of Newton Ransom is a road, that's our road. And we're working with Newton Township right now. We will be paving that road and most likely putting up lights. We're working with civil engineers right now. But that will be a road that we are only using for our buses. So when we talk about safety, this hits about the safety once again. We do not want to commingle our buses with the student traffic. We want to keep them going out that way. We've worked with several contractors to work in the last 2 years to work on that road, and we will continue to do so. We've also submitted to Newton Township. We did a traffic study, and to your point, what we call like a queuing study, right? Because we don't want cars to queue on the road. So when the cars come in, we believe that we'll be able to eliminate most of the queuing with the building in the front, and there's going to be a very large parking lot in there with the exterior of that parking lot like a little driveway road / thing, where we'll be able to slow down the traffic, line that traffic up, and we'll be able to have 7th and 8th grade and move things around. So while not ideal, we've done the best we can with the traffic that way. The busing was mentioned, and we'll continue to take a look at that. We have the most economical busing system possible, and I say that because it's just like a standard. It doesn't matter what school district you go to. There's only a couple different options, but we have like a 3-tier system. So the drivers go and they do the middle school run, and then they loop back around, and then they get the high school kids, and then they loop back around, and they do the elementary kids. There's nothing more that I'd like to do than change some of those times up. But one of the problems we have, I'm sure everybody is aware of, is just not only the finding the drivers and making sure we get the buses, but that's just not a fight that I've given up on yet, because I'm not so naive as to think that the middle school start time isn't a reason why parents bring their kids in. Perhaps they want to sleep in 25 minutes longer, and I don't begrudge anybody for that. And that's just on the list of challenges that we need to figure out. And I haven't cracked that nut yet. So on the financial side, is again another great question that we've talked about publicly here, and we have a lot to do, and we don't have all the money for it. The state is no longer funding what we used to call PlanCon, where we would get a 20% reimbursement, and we're still getting reimbursement checks from Newton Ransom. They're not much, but this was funded for almost 40 years, and it's no longer funded by the state, which puts the burden smackly dab on our local base, unfortunately. But to answer the question, that 5 to 10 years, what we do is we line up the projects, and we're constantly talking about it. So we're looking at the middle school to say, okay, what might be next? So for instance, you know, I'm already submitting grants for other schools. And I know that, so for instance, last year I submitted a grant, I just got $775,000. We just got $775,000 for South Abington Elementary. So we're already thinking about that. Even though we don't have a lot of money, that's $775,000. We'll do a little bit of matching with it. We can do a lot there. And I'm already on to the next grant cycle for another school. And it's hard to think 5 to 10 years out. As I sat here 3 years ago, if you told me the state was going to give us an additional $1 million over the 3 years that I've been here in funding, I would have said, no, not so fast. They don't do that. But they lost a court case. There's been a lot of energy around it, and now there's some commitments. I couldn't have thought that was going to happen. Just like 4 years ago, I would have never thought interest rates on some of these bonds would be at 0. Just like I never thought that construction cost would go from $243 to $410. So I know that that's not like the best answer, but that's what I have. And then finally, you mentioned about the athletic facilities. This is a great one. I know I'm on record. I talked about this a couple times online, where when we talked about as a board last year allocating our resources, we knew that we wanted to do a portion to athletics. So we were originally looking at $100 million, and we said maybe 5% to that. And what I said was, don't be surprised if the athletic facility goes up first, because it's shovel-ready to go, and if we don't do it now, it'll get in the way of other projects. And that's exactly what happened. We put up the field first because that was ready to go. And interestingly, we started this middle school project way before the field. We've just been working with architects and construction managers for the last year and some months on the design phase, because it is such a large project. So I shouldn't end a sentence in so. My mom was an English teacher. She'd kill me for that. Yeah. In conclusion, are there any, yep, sir, you have some questions? Come on up. That's fine. Is it, what time is it? No, I'm joking. I can answer that.
I'm not accustomed to public hearings like this. Everyone's very polite. Just a very quick question, and I just arrived, so I'm not sure if anyone asked this, but I was curious about your plans for the tennis courts. They've certainly seen better days. Name is Dave Bolzoni, and I reside in Newton Township. Thank you.
No problem. Dave, I'm going to have a first tonight for you. If you're the last question, joking. Oftentimes I will make sure that I alert the board and give a board a heads up on something, right? But you're going to get this answer at the same time as the board, and they're all sitting out here, like wondering what that is, right? I just had a meeting today. As I meet weekly with our facilities and maintenance, and we go over every aspect of our physical plant. And I was made aware of some conditions at the tennis courts, and some cracking and some elevation and things like that. So we are aware of it. We have also thought about how we're going to repair it, but to more specifically get to a possible solution, I had mentioned earlier when you weren't here that as part of the bid process, we put together a list of alternative bids. So when we put bids out on the middle school, we'll ask questions. It's probably not the best way to put it, but to get quotes for certain things. And we know that the courts have been cracking, and they're in not great condition, and that we're going to have to evaluate the safety of those. That's an excellent project to put on an alternate bid to see what that comes in. So I appreciate your question. It's timely, and it is a recently known issue. All right, well, look, I appreciate everybody. Oh, go ahead.
I know I already spoke, so I was waiting. I do have one question about.
Ma'am, I'm going to ask you just to come to the microphone so we can get it on the transcript. Thank you.
One more question. I know a while ago that information was floated that you were thinking about selling this particular building and its properties, and attached properties, and I'm wondering if that's something that's, was weighed upon, selling this and maybe using some of the money from this to offset some of the millage for the community. So I don't know if that's, been something that you guys have talked about. So that was just my last question.
Sure, no, great question, and I've publicly talked about this. It's on YouTube. Yes. So what we've done is, when we started out this process, what I told the board is, you can't have a myopic viewpoint of this project. We have to start with a very divergent lens and slowly eliminate things. So I'm sitting in a building and I work in a building that has a capacity of approximately 350, and there's approximately 17 of us on 11 acres. I would not be doing my job as a superintendent if I didn't say, school board, you need to explore this option. I'm not saying that we did it, because plenty of people have told me that I sold the pit already, and yet we're still here and I'm still scheduling games. But it's the board's obligation to look at every possible scenario. So what we did is we hired a real estate attorney to, one, make sure that we own the land. I know that that sounds like a really odd question, but this land dates back and we've got approximately 6 deeds. And then we put those deeds together, and then we'd have to get it surveyed just to see if we, own the property. And we had a road going through here that I didn't know about. Well, was the road vacated? We have a sewage pipe. So before the board even does any type of due diligence to do that, we have to go through that whole exercise where we'll do that, and we'll perhaps get some appraisals. But it's a very good question, and I just want to make sure it's not, nobody's misinterpreting this here. I believe that the school board and myself have to look at every single option. And we have to consider, and then we have to eliminate. I mean, we considered consolidations and building a mega school, and there are all sorts of things that we considered. And then we got the costs, and we looked at other things, and it was really easy to take that off. But you have to start with a really broad lens. Well, if there isn't any more questions, I want to thank everybody for coming. I want to make sure that if you hadn't signed in, please sign in. I appreciate it. And if you have any further questions, feel free. You can always submit your questions in writing, or you can email me or call me.
Yeah, just a reminder to everyone, you have until 4 p.m. on March 31st to submit written comments. So if you go home and think of something else, please feel free to do so.